Welcome back, everybody. This is local Tico Bro. Hey, today bringing you a mage run where we mostly just buff our player with the correct elements. Because of that, we have buffs to Focus Bolt, as well as increasing the duration that buffs last on us, because that's the only way we're going to deal damage. Key items, we mostly just have Volant White for the holy damage, because we are not permitting Holy Focus Bolt, and the rest is kind of stock standard. Getting started with the run, we can see that we have the Saurian configuration. The Saurian configuration is a little bit nicer. We don't have to deal with Garm. That being said, on this run, Garm is not overly scary. We can kind of avoid them quite nicely and deal pretty good damage with lightning. But the regular Saurian are weak to ice, as is obvious. This run is going to be largely about using the appropriate elements at the appropriate time, considering that's the only way we can deal damage. Siren is weak to dark, so I don't generally like using the dark affinity buff on the staff. I mean, it's great. Dark damage is great for certain things, but the attack of the dark affinity buff it comes out relatively slow. And it's just not my favorite. It isn't bad, do not get me wrong. I don't believe that the Dark Affinity spell itself is bad. Even on a mage. That was a close one. But it's just not... I don't know. There's just something about it that I don't care about, I guess. Now I'm buffing with fire because we have the Sulfur Saurian. Sulfur Saurian are exceptionally weak to fire damage, as you'll see in a moment. And I want to kill them before I kill the other guy, just because they're quick and easy. As you can see, getting that preemption bonus damage is literally one-shotting even the giant one. Now the Gore Chimera itself is weak to ice, so we're going to buff that. And I'm happy we were in hit there, because that would have interrupted my cast. Now this run was actually done quite a while ago. It's been months, frankly. So I don't really remember everything about this run. Here we're switching to the Golden Claw because we're never going to out DPS the healing that the goat can output. So there I stopped the staff swap because it'll actually get rid of the bolts that you have in the air that haven't landed yet, and I didn't want to cancel them. They do damage from the Golden Claw, not as much as the Dominion, but it still does damage. I don't want to cancel damage for no reason other than I'm just impatient. But yeah, as you see, ice does pretty decent damage. So now that the goat is dead, as well as the snake, we want to try and hit the lion's face, because it's just going to deal the most damage. This is not a no-hit run, by the way. I have no intention of it being a no-hit run. Do I think a no-hit run is possible? Absolutely. But the reality is it's just not going to be fun for me to do. We'll probably do one another time with Mage. I wouldn't use this method to do it. This method was more to be an interesting run that focuses on the elements, which I know most of the elements that I need to use on most circumstances, but I actually don't know every elemental weakness for every creature, so you'll see a little bit of experimentation later in the run. But it is a not a no-hit run. Obviously, we've been hit, but I'm permitting myself to use curatives that we find. We just didn't bring any on the start of the run, simply because I don't like to. I enjoy not having curatives consistently in my inventory. One, for weight reasons, but two, it's additional challenge, and as fun as it may be to steamroll over this game, because it absolutely is that, I do like having to struggle. Some of my favorite things in this game are having exceptionally long fights that you just have with like a chimera at low level, and it takes you like minutes and minutes to really deal with the enemy, and you have to play well for a duration that is longer than just a couple seconds. I thoroughly enjoy that. Obviously, I like being strong at the end as well, but yes. Here, Hellhounds are going to be my chief concern at the start. We will knock this guy down and do damage to it, obviously. We're going to stay up here. We're going to wait for Hellhounds to come to us. So until Hellhounds come to us, we're probably not going to move too far from this area. You see I'm looking down those stairs because I know that's where the Hellhounds will come from. So what we'll do is we'll just keep hitting this guy. Unfortunately, it doesn't do good damage. It does when he's on the ground, obviously, but knocking him out of the sky doesn't really do a whole lot for us. So now that we see the Hellhounds, there are 5 of them, so as I do this, I'm counting to myself, okay, that's 1. Not an overly difficult fight for us, because we do have the ice damage on the Hellhounds. We can attack them from range. It's not going to be a big deal. But we can't really get a good hit in on the Fire Drake until the Hellhounds are really taken care of, just because it becomes too dangerous. Anybody who's played this game casually knows that Hellhounds are a huge pain in the neck, just because they shoot their fireballs at you, they're pretty agile, they'll run away from you and then re-attack. They can be a very frustrating enemy. So that's why we focus on them more so than the dragon itself. Hellhound's just chilling down there. That's the last one we need, though. So if we can get the angle on that Hellhound by going over here where the drop-off is, we can start actually putting some hurt in on the Fire Drake. And it looks like we got a good angle. So at this point, what I should be doing is kiting down the stairs a bit, so that the dragon is going to fall in a more advantageous position for me. If the dragon falls a little further left, my focus bolt just won't target him very effectively, is the thing. Like, we'll hit, yes, but like, we're not going to land all of them, and we're certainly not going to land all of them in good places. Because we have to hit like the wings. The wings are going to be the best bet for us for a while. So we'll see how long I stay in this position. I genuinely don't recall, because like I said, it's been months since I actually executed this run. But we'll see. That's a couple good hits there. And you see, like, just using Focus Bolt, we're doing quite effective damage to this guy when we land the hit on the correct parts. You know, we're not using Gissel or Gickle or however you pronounce that word. We're not using Frigger. You know, ice damage itself is pretty good. We could also use dark damage here. Ice is better, in my experience. But dark would not be a bad decision either. Grigori is weak to dark, so Grigori dark is often the play out there. These guys are similarly weak to dark, but they're not as weak as they are to ice, in my experience. The crits on dark are really nice, though. If you're lucky on crits, it's really kind of melty. Melty as we use ice. I guess I stay up here for a while. Our biggest struggle, as you can probably already surmise, is that we're not going to be able to hit the heart from up here, because we've gone through, what is that, 8 health bars now, 9 health bars now, and we haven't hit his heart once. So when we get to that point, we'll have to knock him down and then hit him with the staff in the heart. Ooh, we got him in the heart once on the last health bar. So yeah, we're gonna need to manually deal with that. So I'll run down here. We'll knock him down. I don't want to get down there too fast because I do want him to fly up, because it's gonna just be way easier. We'll just knock him down, and we'll jump down to greet him with the business end of our staff. There we go. So heading towards the Ward of Regret. There are 2 configurations, just like every room. In this or not in this configuration, because I don't know which one it is, but I don't know why I'm buffing with fire, frankly. Oh, I know why I'm buffing with fire. I did a short buff because I didn't know whether, or like how long I had left on the ice buff. What we're going to do is, I took the staff off to see if it just gets rid of the buff. It does not. You can actually see the buff from main on my bar when I was not equipping it. But we switched to the Volant White because we're going to either have skeletons or ghosts. We can hear the ghosts, so we know we have ghosts. Either way, we want holy damage. Holy damage is going to be the most effective in our kit. So we switched to Volant White, which you get from the Dragon. That one you can get from the offline version of the Dragon, so it makes it very easy to obtain. But we're going to switch to this so that we can use regular Focus Bolt. We are not using Holy Focus Bolt with the buff, because Holy Focus Bolt operates differently than a standard Focus Bolt. When you have a Holy Staff and you do Focus Bolt without like an additional enchantment, it comes out like a normal Focus Bolt, as if you didn't have any buff on the staff whatsoever. And that's basically there to provide some semblance of balance for our run, because anybody who's played a Sorcerer or Mage and used Holy Focus Bolt knows that it is absolutely broken. Like, you can shoot through walls and kill things. It has insane stagger. It trivializes a lot of things for us, and I didn't want... While I didn't want to pull my hair out on this run, I also didn't want it to be trivial. Especially since Holy Focus Bolt allows us to not use the appropriate element consistently, because it's just so damn effective, regardless of what you're hitting. Unless something's like resistant to Holy Focus Bolt tends to just be the best tool if you're going to use a Focus Bolt. So, in this case, we elect to just use standard Focus Bolt or attacks with the Volant White Staff. I'm a little surprised I didn't open that chest, but now that I think about it, I am not too surprised. That chest often has a Gear 3 in it, so I usually will open it on a run. However, if we were doing a run here for buffed attacks, you know, there isn't really... We're not going to really improve. We're not going to improve most of them. So that's me being dismayed that he's blocking us. Which means we're going to have to take the long way. Now, the Living Armor is not weak to any specific element. So, swapping elements is not really going to net us a whole lot in terms of gains. Fortunately, regular Focus Bolt does do damage to him in phase 1. as do our regular base attacks. So we are capable of dealing with living armor both phases. Obviously, phase 2 is going to be much faster because, well, we do considerable magic damage as a sorcerer. So, or not a sorcerer, as a mage. So it's gonna be a little quicker. But I mean, frankly, looking at this damage, phase 1's not that bad. We're doing more damage in phase 1 than you do as many of the physical vocations in phase 2. And phase 1 and phase 2 have the same amount of health to go through. So I am not at all concerned about how fast, or how slow rather, the phase 1's going. It's beautiful. In fact, we're already done with it. And now you'll see phase 1 being done. Phase 2 is an absolute pushover for us. And what's cool is we don't have to change our strategy in any way. It's just very effective. Any of you who saw like our Strider or Ranger run will know that like phase 2 is a bit more painful because you just stop doing good damage. You do enough damage, yes, but like you stop doing good damage, and it's rough. If you've seen my solo warrior run, or you've watched me stream any of those runs, because not all of them end up here, but if you've seen me stream some of those runs, you'll know that they're not all winners. Let's put it that way. Some of the strategies are just a bit painful. There you can see the difference between the effectiveness of us using Focus Bolt versus the regular attack. We have the Ferocity augment, which increases the damage of core skills. Focus Bolt is a core ability, so that helps. As well as just the fact that we are using a ability at all. When you use an ability, you tend to do more damage than just your basic attacks. So, even without Ferocity, we should be doing more damage to make it past their defensive threshold. But in this case, it's just not the case. That's working out. Here, I'm possibly debating between Volant White or just using Fire. I don't know if that's truly what I was thinking, or if I was speaking to stream. These runs are all streamed live. So it's possible I was replying to somebody. But you guys should definitely, if you're enjoying these runs, you should check out my stream sometime. We stream over at twitch.tv/localticoprohe. Right now I'm streaming Monday through Friday, every week. So, except for this one, actually, because this week I am out of town. So I'm actually finally working on my backlog of voiceover because I finally have the time to do so. So hopefully, after this video comes out, you'll actually have a slew of them in rapid succession because this is the first one I'm working on. But after Mage, we have a fighter run, and then we have 2 different assassin runs that I've got recordings for already that I need to voice. So hopefully, in about a week from recording this right now, we'll have a good amount for you guys to check out. Prisoner Gore Cyclops, weak to ice, just like the smaller version of the Gore Cyclops. Just because he's bigger doesn't mean he's got a different resistance. The unfortunate factor of fighting this guy is that it is hard to hit him because the targeting system of Focus Bolt is atrocious. As you see, it's not very good. I then opt to just shoot him. Even though Focus Bolt would do more damage, we just aren't landing enough of them. And as you can probably surmise, it's going to take a minute to accomplish. But realistically, I mean, looking at our damage and how consistently these things land, it's not the best. But if we aim for his right leg, it is moving. So I'm content to just stand here and let it go. This run was never going to be the high-octane, action-packed run. I think we all knew that going in. But it's still an enjoyable run to do because it gets you really thinking about elements, knowing the elemental weaknesses of different enemy types, figuring out a way to use them effectively, because we don't do insane damage on this run. Part of the reason why this is not a no-hit run is to execute a no-hit run, you often want to be dealing considerable damage so that things die fast enough that you don't have to evade them, preferably at all. But if not, you know, if not at all, you don't want to evade them long. I don't know why I gave myself a short buff there. I probably should have given us a full buff. But that's it. There, I decided to give myself the full buff. I guess I realized that was a bad decision. The short one, I mean. Although, had I done the long one the first time, I probably could have gotten away with the short one here on that buff. And it would not have been an issue. Part of the concern about doing a short buff versus a long buff, or a long buff versus a short buff, is you need to realize that you are going to have to use multiple elements during the run. And if I have to do another buff to override the one I have, fantastic. But if I need to switch to either holy damage or a neutral focus bolt that's dealing just baseline magic damage, I don't want to have put on a buff that is the extended duration and then have to just stand around waiting. Because it's not fun, first of all, and two, it's just, you know, it's just not, it's, it really messes with the flow of the run. Here we're switching to dark. We're gonna have corrupted pawns above us. The reason I switched to dark here is because bandits and humans are very weak to dark. I don't recall whether corrupted pawns are. So this is probably us testing. It seems to be effective, so we're happy about it. Now, if you... we didn't get a crit there. If you watch, occasionally you see, I don't know if you caught that, there's a little spike of tendrils that come off. That's when you get a crit. Dark, all of these elements have a additional effect that they will do. Fire catches enemies on fire, and they'll burn over time a little bit. Not that much, frankly, but a little bit. Ice freezes enemies. Lightning ricochets and chains lightning to other enemies, which is quite nice. Holy will heal you, and I believe that heal is for 10% of your base magic defense. So if you have, for example, my warrior, I'm doing a warrior run right now, live on Twitch. My warrior has 168 base magic defense. The number in parentheses. So when he procs a holy proc, he gets healed for like 17 health. It's not, it's not great. But higher holy defense yields more. Also, you can proc it multiple times with hits that strike multiple times. Dark can crit, and what it does is it just deals more damage. I don't honestly know what the multiplier is. Frankly, it doesn't really matter to me, because it's gonna either do good damage or not, right? Just like Oraclus, you know, Oraclus crits. It's either going to do good damage or not on the crit. So I don't really care what the number is. It's not going to change my decision to use or not use it. Because here we're looking at dark damage specifically because dark damage is effective. And when we get the crits, it's extra effective. Super effective if you're into Pokemon. So that is our decision-making matrix. What's cool about this run is we do not consume a whole lot of stamina fighting things. So we are free to sprint from place to place. We want to have some stamina, yes, because we will need to use some of it to buff. But for the most part, we can just marathon man this. And it's absolutely great. A lot of runs, you'll see I will walk places because I want to have maximum stamina before we fight things. Not having stamina is not necessarily good. Here I'm not putting an element on because I want to kill the Goblin Shaman. They can die with an element on, but it's not necessarily the most effective decision. Dark damage because we want to kill the Siren. This room has two configurations that it could have been in. One has these greater goblins and sirens and these gore cyclops. The other one could have had the cockatrice. The cockatrice spawns death as the carrion beast. This configuration, however, spawns Garm. As we said before, this is not like the scariest configuration to have Garmin, just because Garm is you know, something that we can deal with. It's weak to lightning damage, you know, pretty good. Things that are weak to lightning are generally really nice because they'll often get like zapped and kind of pseudo stunned at times when the lightning chains. It's not the most crucial thing in the world, mind you, but it's a nice additional bonus. There I wasn't buffing because I wanted to kill that goblin. I'm probably here trying to see if I can see the sirens, because there are 3 total sirens, and I don't want to have the sirens active at the same time as these guys, because the sirens will heal them, and the siren heal is actually quite quick when they sing. So I don't want to spend a minute working on these guys for a siren to heal it all in a matter of seconds. So I was trying to see if I could find the siren. Now, ice damage would probably be better if we were consistently hitting his head. But here, we're not doing that because the angle's too bad. So here we can use Dark. What's really cool about both the Dark and the Holy Affinities is that they will travel through walls. Terrain features do not concern them. So like here, you see those go through that wall right there? Easy peasy. So here I'm making use of both the fact that I can hit them using Dark because it goes through the wall, and, you know, the crit does damage. We're not doing great damage when we're not critting, but when we crit, which is pretty consistently, you know, we're happy. What's interesting about crit is, earlier I was talking about seeing the tendril, but you can also hear a difference between the crit. There's a little audio thing, and it's kind of hard to discern, but it is noticeable. These guys are a little further away, so I want to try and land ice damage, because the ice damage will be better if I can land it, is the thing. But as you see, it's kind of not working out in terms of landing it. Switching to single shots appears to be a little bit more efficient in terms of landing ice damage. But it's still a little bit awkward, right? But man, look at that damage when we get to land it on the face. It's not bad. And this is just a good showcase of how having the appropriate knowledge of the appropriate element can really make or break your run. Or maybe not your run, but a fight. Even casually, if you know what element you need to use, oh man, the elements can, or not the elements, the fights can be not necessarily trivialized, but they can be completely overwhelmed by you. There we switched to Dark because the Siren was there. We wanted to kill it. Like I said before, if that Siren decides to not try and attack us and instead to heal, it can honestly heal that Gork Cyclops all the way to full in only a handful of seconds, which is obviously not what we're hoping for. We've already spent a couple minutes fighting this guy and his counterpart, so for him to just full heal because a Siren sings is, you know, at the bottom of our to-do list. Now there are 3 Sirens, and I believe that was only 2, unless I am misremembering. The third one tends to get caught flying around the other door. Not the one that we can see on the left side of our screen, but the one that's like directly ahead of us by that torch. So we'll see what we do. Here we're switching to Thunder. The next room has, I want to say, 6 Hobgoblins. Thunder Affinity is going to chain lightning to them. What's nice is they're also standing in water, which also has a nice interaction with lightning. You can chain water a little bit further, although it doesn't look like it was necessary this time because everyone dies in one hit. So the additional chain we never really got to see. But that's okay. So we're running this way because there is a goblin this way, another hobgoblin, which we probably could just do a focus bolt around the corner and it'll bounce like that. But this is also a really good angle to attack the third Siren from. If we stand on this railing, it usually flies in a circle over there. And there it caught on to us and decided to come say hi, but if it didn't, it would be flying in a circle a little bit ahead of us, and we can basically shoot it from here. It's pretty consistent that it'll get caught there, so we have a good time hitting him from there on basically any build that's ranged. So here, the next thing we're going to run into is Goblin Shamans. We're waiting for our buff to fall off because we don't want it. So we have the dark buff, like I said. And that was, again, another point of us talking about how earlier I was saying we don't want to have elements sometimes for certain fights. So we're going to buff with the shorter duration because we want to be able to switch to having no element, whether we need holy or 0 element. And here we wanted 0 element, and having the shorter version of the dark buff accommodates that. Now here we kind of had two options. We can choose to silence him, which seems to be the route we're going to go. Generally, if you want to silence him, what I like to use is lightning, because lightning will ricochet. I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't have a buff on, so like I'm never going to succeed. The other option we could do is we can wait until he casts Fireball. Ingle. There he's using Ingle. Okay, so I don't know why I switched to the Golden Cloth. We're not going to do this. But when he starts casting Ingle, he can't hit us because there's too much in the way. Oh, I know why I didn't want to switch to using Lightning to silence him, because we'd have to then wait for the buff to fall off. But yeah, if we wait for Ingle, we can just climb up that ladder. That is a strategy I use on any vocation that can't hit him from below, from range. Here we're buffing with Lightning because I anticipate Garm being in this room. It isn't unlikely for Garm to be here, so we'll probably be set upon the moment we go through. The alternative is that they don't spawn here and they instead spawn down below, at which point my lightning buff would be kind of wasted. But as you can see, we are quite effective with our lightning buff. It's kind of awkward. I don't want to go too far. Ooh, got us. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to wake up the golem at the same time I'm trying to deal with these guys. It's only going to complicate things, and it's not going to help me accomplish anything. I don't know what causes Garm to get so stuck so consistently, but I'm here for it. We'll take advantage. There you saw the chain lightning procs that I was talking about. So there, what's nice about me using lightning is that I can do a little bit of damage to all three of them every time I hit one. That's why you see the health bar like changing which one it's targeting so consistently. It's because it's whatever was hit last. And so the lightning will chain and hit a different one in between. And despite getting hit pretty early on, that was a pretty easy kill with Garm, right? We got hit one time because we had to like get off of our platform because one jumped up with us. But other than that, pretty smooth. We can literally just hop over and see, you know, that lightning damage is really going to absolutely shred through these guys. Now, the golem is not our favorite fight. Golem does not take any magic damage. You have to hit it with physical. Now, certain spells will deal damage to it. Bolide is a good example of that. But it is not consistently good at targeting things. The medallions you specifically need, so earlier you saw I kind of looked at every staff I had to see which one had this highest strength stat on it. And Dominion Claw is that. I was waiting for the buff to wear off. I don't really need to because the melee is still fine. But it's not like my punches are going to do magic damage. Unfortunately, my punches aren't really going to do any damage, so this is going to be a painful and slow endeavor. Despite being a mage, this is not a magical fight. It is awful. What we're looking for there is to get the back or the chest. Obviously the back is what we went for. But we want to get the back of the chest so that we can get a knockdown. We want to get another one before this guy stands up as well. It's a little bit dismaying that he's not. Now we'll go for the knee, because he can fall down from the knee. Not necessarily, but he can. There he fell down because he wasn't fully reset. That's why he falls so quickly. Now, unfortunately here, I don't know if we're going to be able to hit the... Okay, we get to hit the chest on the backswing. That's cool. We are still going to have a little trouble with the hand, most likely. But fortunately, we can actually more than likely reach the hand while he's standing. It does, unfortunately, make things a little difficult for us. Because he's going to be enraged now that he's woken up. And it'll be somewhat problematic to be close enough to him to even attempt the swing. But fortunately, we only need to hit him a couple times. All told, that was not that bad. I have had runs where it's much worse. So I am A-okay with that, that fight. Hopefully we don't get the double golem fight in the Pilgrim's Gauntlet. I don't recall at all what we get in the Pilgrim's Gauntlet, so hopefully we don't get this. But I guess we'll find out when we get there in probably about, I don't know, probably like 30 minutes of footage. Here we're going to do a quick jaunt into the Gutter of Misery. We don't need anything from it, but what we're looking for is to see if I have barbed nails. Or not barbed nails, bloody knuckles. Because if I have a pair of those, it might help us out when we do the, if we get the golems. Which now that I'm thinking about it, I'm pretty sure we don't get the golems. Because I want to say I was annoyed that we stepped in here and didn't actually use the thing we grabbed. But, mages, sorcerers, no strength stats. Bloody Knuckles can be your friend to climb on them and deal damage to parts that are harder to hit. Here I'm buffing with fire because we have Sulfur Saurian, which are, as we demonstrated in the Garden of Ignominy, quite weak to fire. I should be using focus bolts here instead of just poking at them like this. The reason for that is I can hit all three of them with preemption bonus damage instead of just one shot, and it'll kill them in one shot if I do that, as we did with that last one. But that's okay. It doesn't really change the fight for us as far as like difficulty goes. It just added a little bit of time, and I would say it added less than 10 seconds. So not a big loss in any way, shape, or form. Because we have the Pyrosaurian configuration, we're going to have Greater Goblins and Eliminator down here. I don't know what my strategy is for this. Thinking of what I would do right now, I would probably either go with Lightning or just regular damage. When you had a buff on your staff and it goes away, you'll note that sometimes... Excuse me. Sometimes the buff will, as you're charging Focus Bolt, will look like your previous enchantment. Not always, but sometimes. So here it looks like we're fire buffed when we're loading up Focus Bolt, but it's not actually a fire buff. Kind of goofy. So here I've opted for Ice. Eliminators can freeze. They're fairly susceptible to it. I don't actually know what damage type Eliminators are weakest to. They take pretty good damage from Lightning, Ice, Holy. They're probably just somewhat weak to Magic, but I don't actually know which one is like most effective damage-wise. But when I can, I like to use Ice because Ice is gonna freeze him. Now here we're using Lightning because I don't want to move too far forward, because if I move forward, an Elder Ogre may spawn. So I want to hit this guy as best I can without getting close enough, and trying to hit him with Focus Bolt with Ice that's a losing battle because we're not going to target him close enough. But here we're getting him with the ricochets. It's a pretty nifty trick. And as I said before, Elder Ogre spawn. Elder Ogre is weak to lightning, so here lightning is our most effective element. And we will provide a long buff for that. I might have just seen a goblin off to our right as well. I don't know. Yeah. I would say I saw it just a moment ago. I guess I didn't see it live when we were doing this run though, because I did not react to it. But I did just notice it now. Now, if we're lucky, the Elder Ogre will, like, chill out and start feasting on something. Which looks like it did. The reason I say that's what we'd want is because it gives us a little bit of extra time to do preemption bonus damage. The problem with our setup is that we don't do that good damage against this guy. So, we will want him torpored. So having the additional preemption bonus damage of hitting him while he's not in a combat stance, or her, or whatever, and just not in a combat stance, is valuable. As you can see. Okay, so now it's no longer in a combat stance. There, I'm using the Rusted Staff again to reapply Torpor, because once it gets under a certain amount of health, it will become enraged, and it moves way faster, which means it's way more dangerous. I don't want it to be untorpored, because it's really rough. It's really not good for us. Even if the buff hasn't wore off, or sorry, not the buff, the debilitation. Even if a debilitation hasn't worn off yet, it will be you are capable of reapplying it, even if you still see the buff. The problem is you don't get an indication that you have reapplied it. Normally, you know, if you're applying a buff, or a debuff rather, you get that little audio cue for Torpor. It sounds like a clock, as well as something like being doused in water. I have no idea what the sound effect is, like how to describe it, I mean. But if you've played this game and you've torpored something, you know the sound effect. My point is, the sound effect is not going to show up if it's already debilitated. So what you have to do is basically just know how many hits it requires to torpor your target. In this case, I don't truly know, but I know about how long it takes. So what I do is I just switch to the Rusted Staff, and I keep hitting it until I know I've hit it way more times than necessary. There we were using lightning because we just still had the buff. Realistically, eye enemies, whether they be Evil Eye, Vile Eye, Gazer, they're all weak to Holy. Pretty weak to physical as well, but they're all weak to holy. So we were just waiting out the lightning buff. Now lightning was actually a pretty good buff to have because as you saw, we were able to chain it into other tentacles when we wanted to, or when we hit one, which is obviously of value. It's not great damage, frankly, but it's not bad either. Unfortunately, every tentacle is immune while he's in this stun thing, and he'll remain that way for a little bit. If you're up top, when he gets knocked down like that, when he stands back up, he will charge. So it's actually kind of a really annoying thing that he becomes immune there, because what we have to do now, since we didn't deal enough damage while we had him knocked down, because we just couldn't target the big eye, this is a big limitation with Focus Bolt that you'll see routinely, is where we just can't target things that we want because they're not considered targets, or because there's more targets available than what we want to hit, and so we'll just target the wrong thing. But if you don't do enough damage, he stands up like this. If you shear off all of the tentacles on him, though, it will go down here and it'll start its cannon move like it just did. It'll regrow all the tentacles. So because we didn't do enough damage, we had to go up and hit the last two tentacles off. On some classes, for some runs, what I'll do is I'll just focus on hitting the tentacles. And if I had not had a lightning buff, I probably would have focused on just shearing the tentacles off his head instead of shooting the ones that were being created on the ground. Because the if you shear a tentacle off of its head in the first phase, he gets staggered, and so he won't be casting. It's very easy to hit them off of his head, especially since you can target them directly with, you know, your light attacks, because it'll hone in on those. But that's okay. Still a very easy fight. No damage. Not a big deal. And with that, we have the first third of the dungeon complete. Not too bad. Only a couple hits, so hopefully we keep our luck as strong. Moving on to the Fortress of Remembrance. We do not have the ghost configuration, as we can already see. What's nice about this configuration is starting out, we kind of want holy damage regardless, because we're either going to have ghosts or undead. That being said, I obviously am buffing with lightning, because I kind of forgot that we're going to have wargs first. You saw I did a short buff. That's because I will wish to have... Ooh, he got me before I can climb up. I will wish to have holy at some point. One just walked off the cliff, which is really nice for us. We use lightning. I don't know what Garm we're weak to. Fire probably would be the better choice. The second one jumped off. But because there are so many, using lightning is nice because I can just chain lightning to all of them. It does okay damage. I don't know, again, if wargs specifically are weak in any way, shape, or form to lightning. I doubt they are. They probably are very neutral to it. They're not resistant, but I'm sure they're neutral. But it's still magic damage on a beast. Magic damage tends to be incredibly effective. But, yeah, I would imagine fire is the more ideal setup. Now here, the guy can run off the edge, and if he does, that's great. It's very consistent to get him to run off. I'm not necessarily trying to force him to run off, but I'm trying to get a safe spot where I can actually hit him. There, he jumped down there. Just did a bunch of damage. Easy. So here I'll switch to the Volant White just so that 1-star buff is done. Oh, we decided not to. Ah, we're going to use fire instead. Now this makes sense to me. These guys are a little weaker to fire than they are lightning for sure. Holy damage would still be better, I think, most likely. However, in the meantime, we can use fire damage to great effect. I don't know what I thought I was doing there. Never pass an empty flask. Because we had this configuration, there's going to be leap worms by the tree roots that we will be passing on our left soon. You can completely avoid them from spawning by just moving around the side, like the outside of the area. If you hug the outer edge of this balcony, there's a panacea. Yeah, I was kind of surprised I didn't pick it up earlier. But if you hug the right side of the balcony, they spawn in those roots to our left now. So if you hug the outside, the leap worms won't spawn, and you can just avoid them entirely. Okay, so here we have the bad configuration. There are two configurations here. Well, I say bad configuration. It's bad because it has Hellhounds. It has Hellhounds. Realistically, for a mage run, it's probably the better configuration because Hellhounds brings a fire Drake as well as ghosts down below. So while up top is a nightmare, frankly, we can deal with it. We do have good ice damage. But down below, while slow and not necessarily fun, it's not like insurmountable, right? Because we can deal damage to ghosts and the fire drake relatively effectively. The alternative has banshees up here instead of hellhounds. Both of them have Pyrosaurian. But down below we have some sirens along with 2 golems. And it's the 2 golems that we don't really want. So this is actually the better configuration for us as a mage. However, knowing that Saurian is... Sorry, not Saurian. Knowing that Hellhounds are in this configuration, my brain has a hard time thinking that I don't want to avoid them. So here, if we're lucky, we can fight the Fire Drake without the ghosts spawning, which would be ideal, but it is somewhat tricky to do. But we'll see what happens. As I said with the one in the Garden of Ignominy, the Duskmoon Tower, we want to kind of hit the wings, because the wings are just a better target for us to hit. The dragon takes effective damage on its heart, its head, and its wings. For the head to take full damage, sometimes you need to break the horns, sometimes you can hit it with the horns still up there. I don't really know what determines that. You'll just notice both in the sound as well as just the damage, though. Sometimes when you hit the head, like, you just don't do the full amount of damage you normally do. And then you'll break the horn and then you start doing it. But other times, before the horn's broken, you will deal damage. I don't know if it's an angle thing. It honestly doesn't matter to me. We go for the wings here because it's effective. Now here, I didn't immediately start buffing because I want to knock him down. Now that we've effectively knocked him down, we should buff. I'm not sure why I haven't elected to buff with ice. We're very clearly not dealing a whole lot of damage here. I think it's because I'm afraid the ghosts are going to spawn soon, and if I have ice damage for the ghosts, it's not going to be very effective. We'll see how long I keep this up. Again, I would anticipate swapping back to holy in short order. And there we go. Like I said, I fully expect the swap to holy. It's just more effective. Considerably so. And since the ghosts haven't spawned, we've been kind of generous with our opportunities to strike them. The reason I let him move so much over to us is because I wanted him to fall into a position where I can hit him on the wings a little bit better. Unfortunately, it didn't really happen. The unfortunate reality of fighting him in this area with this method is that we don't get very good angles to hit him with. It might be a little bit better if we had chosen Dark, because we might have been able to hit the wings through the ground. Through the balcony, I mean. But without, it's obviously a touch of a struggle here. Now the ghosts have become active. We can deal damage to ghosts with ice damage. It's possible. It's not the most effective damage because wraiths, the red ghosts, are weak to holy specifically. They take damage from all types, but they are weak to holy specifically. In there. Landing a hit on the heart is just so effective. Fortunately, this guy takes neutral damage very nicely, but like in comparison to, you know, what we might expect. But it's not nearly as impressive as we would like it to be, right? However, I don't want to buff with ice again because we're gonna want holy damage here in very short order. This is me probably replying to a question real quick. Well, generally a pretty effective multitasker. I don't necessarily do it by default. Hey, we got it. Now we can move on to our Holy Staff. We might be able to target some of them up here if they charge at us, like if they notice us, I mean. But more than likely we'll jump down. Or not jump down, we'll run around the outside. There will be spiders in here. If I wanted to clear them quickly, lightning damage here would be really good because spiders are very susceptible to whatever element you hit them with. So when you hit a spider with holy damage, you will always get that health back. Dark damage, you will always crit. Fire and ice don't really matter because they die in one shot, so they're not going to remain frozen. They're not going to catch fire. But lightning will chain lightning to the other. It'll do chain lightning to the other spiders. So you can clear out like a whole room of spiders in short order. There are 5 total ghosts. We killed 1 up top. We just killed 1 there. So we have just 2 now. And this is why we wanted holy damage. Remember earlier when we did the ice one? We didn't one-shot. This is a one-shot with ice. Or sorry, with lightning. Oh my gosh. With holy. What am I even saying? Now, unfortunately, death is not a good fight for us. Death is definitely weaker to physical damage than it is magic. And as you can see, we don't really do a whole lot of damage with Focus Bolt. So what we're going to do is we're just going to chip down at him. Fortunately, despite not doing really any damage to speak of, death is extremely easy to evade his damage on, so we just hit him. And that's that. So let's sprint our way out of the Pilgrim's Gauntlet so that we can resume the Fortress of Remembrance. Now, as we recall before, we had the undead configuration. That means we're going to have some banshees up here, but there's also going to be 2 poison undead. What I like to do is run past the poison undead at the beginning, because a lot of times they'll turn around to fight you and they'll just walk off the cliff. Walk off the bridge here, I guess, and obviously that's useful. There we go. What's also important about running past them early is that if you run past them early, you don't have to worry about them spewing their poison on the bridge to get past it. You don't have to try and evade the poison to get around them. Here, I've kind of, because I chose to deal with the Lich first, I don't really have a route that I can leave from this guy on yet. And that's actually a misplay on my part. I would consider this a misplay. I should have run past these guys so that I'm on the other side of his poison spew. That way, if he starts just standing there and spewing poison, it doesn't really affect me at all. I can get around it easily. It looks like I can probably still do that, but it wouldn't be an issue at all. It's very easy for him to move around left, right, cover up the entire bridge, right? This guy's gonna fall off because we ran past him. He's gonna slowly turn around. That's very consistent, by the way, that they'll turn around like that. And that guy gave us the good pattern, walking off. We'll see if this guy does the same thing. Here I'm like manipulating where I'm standing to try and see if I can convince him to walk off. If he doesn't, it doesn't really matter. As you can see, we do pretty effective damage with just the Volant White. But if we can get him to walk off, obviously, we'll take it because it just speeds it up a little bit. It's not a dangerous fight either way. Now here we can have a Banshee and a Giant Undead, which is the tall, skinny ones. We didn't. Sometimes they'll spawn late, but that's okay. There are leap worms in all of these haystacks. If you perfectly bisect those two haystacks, go right between the two of them, you can avoid them spawning altogether, which is what we did there. It's pretty much what I do always, every single run, because I don't even know how many leap worms there are in there, but it's a lot. I don't want to deal with them. Leap worms aren't overly dangerous for us on this run because we just buff ourselves with lightning and hit them, but obviously doing that means we're not going to have the holy buff here, which is 1, effective against liches, and 2, effective against the remaining undead that we're going to have here, because we're going to have a couple skeletal knights, as I just spawned one in, and then after the skeletal knights we're going to have poisoned undead. There are 3 skeletal knights. So I have to be aware of that. The first move they always do is burst strike, so that's why you see me kind of like serpentining a little bit. Moving left and right. I don't want to get hit by the burst strike because it'll knock me on my butt, and it does pretty considerable damage. It is not something to take lightly. So we do not. Unfortunately, these guys seem to be carpeting the entire hallway with poison there. Unfortunately, the one on the right just wore out, so we should have a safe alley to take. But this is another example of why I like to run past poison undead before engaging them. That way I don't have to be blocked by any of their poison if I need to get past them afterwards. It just speeds things along. These runs are long enough without, you know. This run's not overly long, although it's still a few hours. But, you know, it's just a little motion I like to do to make things a little bit more consistent. Now, I'm not entirely certain as to why I swapped off of the Volant Light, because on either configuration we would either have skeletal sorcerers and banshees, or this one where we have a bunch of succubi. Now, succubi, weak to hold, but the succubi, there are 13 of them in this room, and then 1 strigula. So 14 flying enemies total. I count them out loud when I actually do these runs live, because knowing how many there are and how many I've dealt with tells me whether I can move forward or not. Moving forward without having them all dead, it's very easy for you to get grabbed by one flying all the way across. It's very easy to get cursed, debilitated. We don't do impressive damage as it is. I mean, we kind of do if we're using the right element, but plenty of things are still fairly resistant even with the correct element, because we're not doing powerful attacks, we're just hitting them with baseline attacks that just happen to be the correct element. Because of that, I really want to avoid getting cursed, getting debilitated. I don't know. I might actually have resistances to it. I have no idea what this outfit resistances are. Oh, hello. Now these guys take alright damage from Holy, so I'm not worried about switching. I will often choose to hit them with ice though if I can, because ice will freeze them. Because I want to have Holy out, we'll keep with it. Holy will also heal me occasionally when I get a proc, which I did not notice how much that proc was for, how much healing was using. I have I've not been counting these, but I suspect we're down to like the last couple. We actually just went from 30-15 to 30-82. So that's what, 67? Health for getting a holy rock. Just beat that guy up through there. And we wasted it. We could have shot her through the cage. I don't know why we didn't do that. That must have been number 13, because I'm willing to move forward now. As a mage or sorcerer or any vocation, you can hit all of the medallions that are in this room without doing extra shenanigans. They are all just accessible. Now, in the arenas, there's a metal golem fight that you can do that is not accessible. It's a big pain and took us. However, again, not an issue. Same thing with the Everfall. There's one in the Everfall that is a pain in the ass for placement. But, you know, we're not doing that. We're doing this. Now, standing in this fire can catch me on fire, as it did. If you equip the Rose Ring, which I did not prep for this, but if you equip the Rose Ring, you can actually avoid that altogether. You can also avoid it by not catching fire, which sounds obvious, but you can avoid it. You can avoid catching fire by like jumping it out of the fire every hit. But because this isn't a no-hit run, I don't actually care that much. Salubrious, that's perfect. That'll heal us once the fire abates. Which it looks like we're gonna wait for it. Perfect. Now the next room can have... What is this room called? This is the Fortress of... or Forsaken Cathedral, right. The Forsaken Cathedral has Pyrosaurian and Goblin Shamans, or Vialize and Goblin Shamans. Here we got the Vialize. This is the, generally my preferred configuration. Because with this configuration, I don't have to really be concerned about... With this configuration, I don't really have to be that concerned about ghosts at the end. But on a mage, I probably would have liked the ghosts. But that's okay. Here I switched to Volant White so that we can maybe get a heal proc off of the rats. Rats aren't very good at providing procs, though, so if I get one, that'd be pretty surprising to me. Yeah, see, we didn't get a single one. Down here, we're going to have more Goblin Shamans, and then we're going to have a Silver Knight. A lone Silver Knight. This one will not be accompanied by a Golden Knight. But the Silver Knight is a bit annoying in his own right. Fortunately, the Goblin Shaman is pretty easy to take care of, so we can deal with the Golden Knight solo once he spawns in. Here, if I'm going to use Focus Bolts on the Silver Knight, I probably should have used Holy. The Golden Claw is also a great option, so that I don't have to deal with his silence. However, he might be pretty resistant. given how much he's avoided it so far. And of course he hits us with the heal, always a frustration. That's okay, I'm not overly worried about him. There are very few things he's going to do to really kill us, so... There we go, easy. And he always has the best goodie bag. Okay, we do not get the Carrion Beast spawn. That's where it spawns, in that hallway back there. Here we're going to have Corrupted Pawns as well as Goblin Shamans. Because we have the Goblin Shamans, again, we don't really want to buff. Corrupted Pawns will still take considerable damage with our staff already anyway, so we don't really need a buff. Earlier we used Dark, right? And the Dark damage itself wasn't anything to write home about. But the crits were nice. As you can see, like, we can just... frankly, we can just stay with physical... or not physical, but the standard staff damage. And it's just as effective as pretty much Dark was, honestly. The only thing is it doesn't home as effectively. But it's hardly a concern. Not Gazer. Dark Bishop. Dark Bishop, favorite fight. The Dragon is weak to Holy. The Bishop is weak to Dark, however. So, what you'll see me do is Focus Bolt the Dragon. Avoid that angle. Focus Bolt the Dragon with Volant White for the Holy damage. And then we'll switch to the other staff. We're going to silence it first with Golden Claw. Now, I wonder if I actually switch to Dark damage here. Dark damage does considerably more damage. And I do, and it looks like I go for a full buff, so what I might be considering... I don't remember how much damage I do here. It's very possible that we just blow him up. It's not really looking like it. But I would expect that my plan is to switch to fire damage for the Dragon when that time comes. What's nice is you can also silence the Dragon with Golden Claw when the Bishop goes into the Dragon. Because the Dragon can cast some pretty scary abilities when the Bishop is inside it. So silencing both the Bishop and the Dragon, we don't really have to worry about getting hit by anything in this fight unless the Dragon hits us with a physical attack. Or that move, because that move can't be silenced. Can be dodged fairly effectively, but it is consistently awkward. As you can see, he's no longer silenced, which is honestly okay. Because he's casting Resurrection right now. I would say here I'm going to switch to fire, I expect. Yep. We don't really need 2 buffs. It's not going to need, or like by 2 buffs I mean the full-size buff. I don't know where our fire, oh, he removed our buff with his roar. Now that's gonna hurt. Fervor is pretty much the scariest thing that he can cast. And that worked out in our favor, actually. Him removing that buff actually made it a little bit easier on us in terms of doing damage, because we want holy damage. Fire is effective in the sense that it does damage to him. Not at like a reduced amount, but it doesn't really do it at an increased amount like Dark or like Holy does. So him casting that roar that removed our buffs was pretty valuable for us. Now that that's been taken care of, though, we're gonna go back to the Dominion Claw. Eventually, we'll unpause. I'm probably explaining something to chat. Again, we do stream these runs live over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe. I currently stream Monday through Friday, 10:30 Eastern Time. You guys should pop in, join us. A lot of Dragon's Dogma faithful in the waiting room with me here for Dragon's Dogma 2. But yeah, as I was saying, in a moment we will be switching to the Dominion Claw and buffing with Dark again so that we can finish off the Bishop. Frankly, a pretty easy fight. I do like this fight, like I said, it's my favorite. But it's not the most difficult fight once you get geared. It's actually a very easy fight a lot of the time. The reason I like it so much is simply the fact that it's... I'm a big MMO fan. And this fight reminds me of fighting something in an MMO because you have like kind of multiple phases to it. You can manipulate the phases by dealing appropriate damage, avoiding certain mechanics, using certain ones of your own, such as silence, things like that. It reminds me of having a nice coordination with the fight itself. With that, we've finished 2/3 of our dungeon. Volant White is going to help us. We can hit these spiders and heal off of them. It's like 60-something health each time. If we ever choose to. I guess we won't. There we go. And with that, thank you for watching. We'll continue this in the next part video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, come check us out over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe to see these live. As well as, you know, drop the video a like, follow. I'm going to be coming out with a few more over the next week or so. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks a lot. Cheers.